12th, Board of Selectmen
right.
meeting.
It's not flashing.
It's a solid red.
Solid red. I don't remember which is.
Excellent.
Board of Selectmen meeting. The agenda for this meeting is a public forum, approval of meeting minutes, appointments to affordable housing and assistant town clerk, school budget working group update, an update on PFAS, new business, old business, and a town administrator's report. So, public forum, do we have anybody from the public that would like to comment? Do we have anybody from the public that is Mrs. Simmons? Approval of meeting minutes.
Does that hold for the whole meeting or just for now?
Certainly will.
Approval of meeting minutes. I understand the meeting minutes are not yet ready, so we're going to move that to our next meeting. And appointments, Affordable Housing Committee and Assistant Town Clerk. You want to?
We have a motion to consider for Debbie Courtney, who reached out to, I think, Sue and Carol on the.
Yes,
Affordable Housing Committee.
Debbie Courtney saw our vacancy post, reached out to Carol Bacon, expressed interest, and then I sent it over to John Hughes. Who's really to have Debbie Courtney. So wanted me to send it over to you all to consider for tonight.
And then for the assistant town clerk, I'm hoping you'll consider appointing Sue as assistant town clerk to assist with office coverage.
I don't think I have those motions.
I mean,
No.
You
Oh,
know, if I-
this
Oh,
one I
there it is.
have
All right.
that's,
for
Oh,
Debbie
okay.
Courtney.
Yeah, all right.
I'll make a motion to appoint Debbie Courtney to the Affordable Housing Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Should we have their addresses on draft motions, like Kieran Meehan of 32 Alexander Way? Does it matter?
I don't think so.
No, 'cause I know on some boards we can have non-residents, on some boards we can't. But I wonder if it's, because like I know Dana Metzler was affordable housing for a while, and then
He lives in Nashville.
but he lives in Nashville. But like on advisory, you have to be a resident.
Advisory is
Conservation, you
elected.
don't.
Conservation, you don't.
Advisory board's an elected board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just,
You gotta be a resident.
yeah. Sometimes it's also good to know where people are coming from.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, but
don't
I think we
disagree with
also kind of know some of these people.
I'm keeping like tracks of contact information.
Okay.
I can
Yeah.
do an address if you want.
I don't
Yeah.
think it needs to be part of the motion. We don't need to throw that out to
Yeah.
the public, but we need, I mean, obviously we would have it.
I don't have
In
a
the
motion here for the
Yeah.
town
File,
clerk.
So, and I just being nosy.
No,
Well, like I know where she lives, but I'm like, I think I'd want the public to know.
I don't think the public needs to know her home address.
But they would know ours on the ballot when they were you in for election. I guess it's different, right? Like this
That's
is an
different.
appointed.
That's-
Those are,
yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
appointed, that's an appointed group.
I mean, if you feel it's important to say whether or not she's a resident, that's one thing, but I wouldn't broadcast her home address or anybody's home address like that. I mean, people really care. I'm sure they could find it,
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
but
I'll also make a motion to appoint Sue Fain as assistant town clerk for a term to expire at a later date.
At a later date, for sure.
some flexibility there, that would be great.
Does she
I don't really
any
have a
to
date.
that?
So.
TBD.
Yeah,
June, want to do June of
okay.
next
Open.
year? So let's do
It's-
June of 2024.
June
Well,
30,
it's-
2024.
She submitted her resignation.
I know
Yeah.
that, but I thought I heard that she was gonna stay on a little bit, but,
No, she's not. No, she's not.
so who's doing the, who swears people in and stuff?
Well, it's why we're appointing an assistant right now to cover that until we
mayhem.
sort out what we're doing,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so Sue will be performing a lot of those functions on an interim basis.
Mhm.
The workload, I'd say, is going to be a team effort at the moment, so.
Okay,
Do
well,
you have a
I
second?
seconded that, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool. All right, moving along. The Groton Dunstable Working Budget Group Update. You want to do that one,
Wanna do that?
please?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that we had our first meeting last week. Was it last week?
Last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Time flies and having fun. So we had, the chair was there, chair of the advisory board, superintendent, assistant super, director of finance and operations of the schools, Sue, and Rafi from the school committee. And so I gave you a copy of this. I sent it to you via email
Yeah.
too, but I kind of prettied up a little bit the forecast and put some words to it and descriptions to it. I also kind of identified a pool of comparable communities, and just kind of went through this with the working group. The moral of the story is, which no one's going to be surprised at, but the forecast shows a deficit, and it's only growing as we learn more from the schools. So this forecast is already, frankly, outdated based on the information we've recently received. So it really is kind
As of
a-
yesterday?
Yeah, so it is it's a living, breathing document that I'll be updating as we go. And so I'm actually working on that now. But I thought overall it was a good start. I thought it was a good discussion. It's a collaborative discussion. I think it's good that we've started these conversations early. And I'm not sure that there'll be consensus, but it's a start to trying to build consensus. But I think the forecast for 25 is just as, if not more challenging than we went through for this fiscal year. So more to come, but I just wanted to provide that update. I don't know if you have any, you were there too. I don't know if you have anything.
I might add to that for the record that the district E&D money is just under $900,000, which is fairly significant in terms of the dollar amount and how much of that they could or would be willing to use to, subsidize their budget. There's, there are clearly, in my mind, no override. That district is in to have to do some cuts because it's not going to, they don't have enough E&D money in that pot to it's not going to work. And so they're in a crisis mode right now, and they're going to need to make some cuts to make their budget work. They will, unless we're going to pass an override and fund them with what they want. I think they're in a reduction mode. It was a great meeting. I thought it was an interactive discussion. It was good, but it's definitely a problem.
So do you get, it's kind of like two channels here. There's the non-override budget, which we as a town have to provide, which would be pretty bleak, as we can imagine. And then there's the advocacy that I think the school board and the school system should be doing for an override, right? Or is this going to be something that group's going to meld together? I get, what's the expectations here? Because I like that we're being so proactive, but to what avail? What are we trying to get to here?
Well, they're going to need a no override budget, and then they're going to need an override budget, right? And, the override budget cannot be this grandiose plan. There's got to be, I mean, it's not a blank check, guys, okay? So let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And so, they're trying to sort through this right now. I think if my calendar's right, we have another meeting with them this coming week, like next week. Right.
Or it's early.
It was every 2 weeks, wasn't it?
I think the next one's early October.
October
Is it?
4th, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only thing that is not resolved and is that, the district and there's some members of the management team in the district that want to put in place free kindergarten.
Mhm.
Okay. And, when you're in budget reduction and now you layer in the expense of paying for these kids to go to kindergarten, I just don't know how that's going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, they're going to have to figure that out.
Well, to clarify, just for the public, to pay for full-time kindergarten, because half-day kindergarten is already included in the budget. It's that step up to have them go to full-time kindergarten.
Yeah, that step up
Yeah,
is a
it's expensive,
significant
yeah.
amount of money.
It is, yeah.
Okay. So we'll obviously utilize that group that you're going to, right, Ron?
Yeah.
To like get more information from. And then I guess part of me is like, should there be outreach? Should there be because we have some good information here. Like at what point does our school folks start to push for this? Because if you were to ask parents on my street, they would have no idea. And one of them works in the school system.
When you say push for what, the kindergarten or
Push
a
for
budget reduction?
information. Like
Push.
start telling people like, hey, next year is going to be, it's either you have a full-time cafeteria. I'm using.
Except we don't know that yet. I mean, you can tell them that we're struggling.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a deficit, but the numbers aren't solid yet.
They're not solid.
Yeah.
They're very much in flux.
In our process,
But they're relative. Like this is bleak. I mean, this is a $400,000 shortage for next year. Like,
That's just
and we
for,
couldn't even
for,
do a $300,000.
for our budget.
that's
Yes.
best case, it's worse than that.
Right.
That's best case.
Oh yeah.
That's not, I mean, the $400,000, like I said, with the updated information, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
Because the growth in the schools is much more than what was projected initially. So that's gonna need to be updated. It's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
And if we really want to, we've talked about the need to gradually reduce free cash in our budget, just as, the schools are, as of right now, trying to remove E&D from their budget as a revenue stream. And they're removing revenue from the kindergarten fee. And that combined with their natural increases in negotiations they have going on right now has spiked their 25 is a significant spike that based on all those factors. I mean, if we look at just our forecast, and if we're talking about removing free cash, if we're talking about actually including capital in our expenditures for FY25, I mean, we're essentially talking about level service budgets across the board, best case.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we can afford. And when I say level service, I'm sorry, I said level service. I meant level funded.
Funded,
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me make sure people understand.
Yeah,
I
this
meant
is-
level funded. And I told,
Which
that-
means no
means
2% increase.
Yeah.
if we're going to,
Right.
I mean, if you look at that, we're only projecting $400,000 of new money. That's all basically we get every year.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it just doesn't cover.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover the increases, so. So anyway, I mean, if we're talking about, let's get out of the business of free cash in the budget, let's include capital because we need to invest in our assets in order to maintain them. That's where we're at. So that when we say level funded, that means cutting budgets because unless we don't want to give anybody raises and
Yeah.
those type of things. So,
Well, sorry. So I guess my last thought then, just continuing to hammer away at this. Like,
Yeah.
we send out a lot of good information. You guys, our town administrator's office, and I think that it's being well received by the public and things like that. You know, even though this is kind of a speculative early
Yeah.
draft budgets, like we look terrible when people say, well, we didn't know, you know, sort of like this PFAS thing. So like the more information we can blanket out and then that the
Yeah.
school committee can, I don't have any skin in the game at the schools other than I'm a resident.
Yeah.
Don't have any kid in the system. So I couldn't tell you, you know, the ins and outs of how the school looks from day to day. I know people who do, but I think at some point, those folks need to know and make a decision what they want to do, whether they want their taxes to go up or not.
Yeah.
Because last year, as a town, we decided we didn't want it to go up.
Yeah.
So again, that's,
I completely agree with you. And, you know, I feel like we presently put out more information through more venues than we ever have.
yeah,
And
it's
we are
fantastic.
still getting this, we don't know. So I don't know, short of knocking door to door, which in a sense we actually have, because neighbor to neighbor goes to every single household. Those cards go to every single household.
Oh, I'm with you.
So people are getting the information. We can't sit there and read it to them. You know,
Right.
It's up to the people there has to be a little effort on the public to search out this information and read it when it's presented. Right now, feels like, it may not be, but it feels like it is completely one-sided, us putting it out there. And the majority, not the majority, again, I'm going to piss people off, I'm sure. There are a lot of people that are not engaging and they are not doing their due diligence to find the information until they show up at town meeting, and at which point they're behind the eight ball because so much discussion has already occurred that we're all past that point of discussion. We've come to the point where we need to make decisions, and that's not the place to be educating people. The info is out there. I mean, do we need to put a sandwich board out there that says PFAS is a problem at the school? You know, Google it, whatever,
Well,
you know, I mean, the budget sucks this year. Google it, you know, I mean, how do we do that? How do we get it out there?
I mean, there are these, you know, during override campaigns,
Mhm.
we're not involved in that, but oftentimes there are these, I think to
Working
your
groups.
point, these
Yeah.
separate organizations that form, that are resident driven, that either support or don't an
Yeah.
override and campaign one way or the other for them, either in favor or opposed. And so that's kind of separate from what we're able to do once it's on the ballot, as I understand it. But that is something that could happen if there was interest and a willingness to do that on the school side, on the town side, on any side.
It may be time for us to do our newsletter again, and we can put this out there. What we're starting to talk about, these are the issues, we don't have answers yet, but this is what we're working on.
I think part of the newsletter has to be just what you're talking about, is this, you know, this lack of engagement, or, you know, people that are at home not understanding when they go to town meeting about what PFAS is, because they're not reading the documentation. I think in some way, that issue in of itself needs to be communicated. Listen, everybody, the information's there, you got to read it, all right?
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, we get someone, the lady that wrote us about the blue bins, right?
Yeah,
I mean, she wrote a very nice, you know, and I wrote her back and I explained to her what was going on with the bins. You know, she's involved. She's at least paying attention to these things, because she says, you know, and that's a good thing. But right now, we've got a significant lack of, you know, people who should be reading this stuff are not reading it. I don't know how to get that community engagement and going.
I don't either. Well, I'm not kidding about the sandwich board out there, because you've had people tell you, put the board out, because I don't know about the town
We
meeting
had that.
otherwise.
That happened at the
Right.
meeting. Yeah. The guy was like, I see the board. I'm like, all right.
And we just put it out there with some keywords, like PFAS budget, mud district, you know?
One little blurb to go out that we send out is
We'll have signs all over the place, Joan. She'll love it. Yeah.
See on the next door, somebody's complaining about somebody in Dunstable, stealing the signs.
Oh,
probably our zoning enforcement officer.
Stealing.
Probably.
Wasn't me.
Stealing what kind of signs?
Just, yard signs and stuff, I don't know.
Well, there is a sign bylaw, so there are
Well,
some signs that aren't supposed to be out there.
The new, what do you call it, right-of-way bylaw.
Hmm.
Right-of-way bylaw says nothing in the right-of-way except mailboxes and telephone poles. So, I don't know if,
Yeah.
if that has encouraged the powers that be to get out there and clean up some of these signs, but I love it.
You may.
Cindy Sullivan. I'm just gonna make an observation. I hear you guys, what you're saying, I thought about a lot, and I think the problem is worse. People do read it. But there's a fear of like, well, I don't know what to do about this, so I'm just not gonna engage. And that makes the problem worse, because what can you do? They are reading. You're putting out there, people are reading, but it's not something they want to get involved with because they're working on the fires from their own lives. with their
Yeah,
feet
true.
Rather than the fire out there.
Right, and that's a good point, but
Right, what do you do?
what do we do with that? I mean, because then we get, decisions made that set us back.
I'm show up to a town meeting,
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa, well, what's the background on this? Well, that has been going on for 3 years. That's
Right.
my problem. It's not your problem.
yeah,
I read somewhere that, democracy, it shouldn't be dictated by the government. The people have to do it.
We the people.
right. People and,
The fundamental.
It's at a personal, local level, not a government enforcing democracy. I feel for you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
This is a battle that we face all the time.
Yes.
And for a long time, town hall, wasn't necessarily putting out the information in a way where it was understood, digestible, timely, or that outreach. So we've corrected that with website and with the addition of Sue, who's doing a lot of social media stuff, and Jason, who's proficient. We got all that going, and we still get people that will call. So we had a liquor license hearing here 2 weeks ago. We got people in the crowd going, when did we pass the liquor license? 4 years ago. How about that? And they're dumbfounded by it, and they're going, well, how could that? Somewhere, there was a guy in this crowd that took the time to write me that said that, is it the selectmen that just decided we could have a liquor license? But that's what, and maybe we're trying to fix something that can never be fixed. But the one thing we are trying to fix is people can't come forward and raise their hand and say, you guys didn't tell us. No, we did tell you.
Yeah.
So defense, I found out about that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then I went, how open are people to texting? Like, how, if it was an emergency, they send out a text. You send out a text saying, PFAS will be assessed tonight, BOS.
We don't have people's phone numbers.
Yeah.
I mean,
You got to,
and there is a sign up. You can go to the town website and sign up to get alerts for everything that comes out. And there's a push for whatever Sue writes up, it gets sent out if you're signed up for that. And we have promoted that as well.
we have a Twitter page. Well, it's not Twitter
We have
anymore,
Facebook page.
Facebook,
yeah.
Instagram.
We
There's our
have-
town website. There's information goes on.
We
the
have all
store,
that, and yet we still have people that come and go,
Newsletters.
well, when did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, we're baffled too. I mean, if anybody has ways, yeah, Yeah.
It's year after year, you're doing the same thing. and
Yeah.
they're very-
We still have things that we want to do to continually improve upon this. Like, we're not
Yeah.
this is what we do and this is it. I mean, there are still things we are working on and plan to do, but I think we're doing a lot to get the word out. We're trying.
I think-
we're doing the best we can
agree.
at the moment.
We have
we're
public
going to do
meetings.
other things, but, yeah.
No, it's like I said,
We do.
I hear you. You
Yeah.
are letting people know.
Yeah.
You are
So
getting stuff. The problem is they read it, there's no action.
Yeah, your point's accurate,
Yeah.
Cindy, because
Yeah.
I wasn't here for the parade on Sunday, but I saw the videos. It was really well attended. I've been out here for concerts in the Common. They are jammed. So people just don't.
People
Okay.
do get the message
Yeah.
when they want to.
Bingo.
That's my point.
Selective hearing, which I probably have for my mom. but-
Yeah. And I don't expect I don't expect everyone to read it and then take action because there's not enough room for everybody to be taking action, but coming to a meeting with an educated opinion about things, be it for or against that's what I'm asking for. But to go and vote out of fear because it's something new that they say they've never heard of, that's frustrating.
Just come to the meeting. We usually have like 100 people. There's 3,400 in town.
Yeah. But,
Joni.
yeah.
Hey, people are going to soccer games and watching Dancing with the Stars. Shit. They don't give a damn about all this stuff until push comes to shove. They go to town meeting and they make they vote out of ignorance. I had another question though, about the school budget. You said they had $900,000 in their E&D account this year. Last year, they had like or 1.9 million or something like that. Any idea what it seems to me in order to balance the budget and not have to, make any cuts last year, they did a final, they went into E&D again to balance their budget.
He did, yeah.
I think
So,
they're experiencing, similar situation that we're experiencing with our free cash, which is we've seen this it's been, 5-6 years now, that we've had a gap between our revenue and our expenses. And so we've identified that gap and we've plugged it with free cash to balance. And so what's happened is that gap between revenue and expenses doesn't go away, you're just plugging the hole. So every year, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, to a point where you don't have enough free cash anymore to plug the gap, and so the gap is larger than what your available free cash is. The way it was explained is, as I understood it, was a similar scenario in the schools, is that they've been subsidizing their budget with E&D, same situation, to try to keep their assessment at a level that the communities can fund. It's gotten to a point now where it's grown to a point where they don't have enough E&D to plug the hole. And so that's all. And at the moment, I think they have a directive from the school committee that says they don't want to use E&D, any of it, to plug. In addition to that, they don't want to charge for kindergarten. So that's just, they have their normal growth that you see every year, plus you're removing that revenue from the equation, which is just further exacerbating.
So they don't wanna, basically, they don't wanna make any cuts in their budget, but they want us, and I don't know about Groton, seems to, do okay for themselves. But, we have to cut, police, fire, everybody in order to accommodate them, but they don't cut anything.
Well, that's not where we're at the moment.
No.
That's where,
They're hitting a wall. They're hitting a wall.
we're all, I think we're all in a similar situation. Is that our revenues are just not keeping up. And And so how do you deal with that? That's a decision locally. How do you want to deal with it? You know, what are the budget parameters? What do we want to see in growth? Anything over that? Is that going to be an override? Do we want to fully fund schools and cut town? Do we want to fully fund town? I mean, those are the decisions that need to happen here. The idea, I think one of the questions, Karen, you were asking was, okay, what are we trying to get out of this group? Which is a really good question. In my mind, the major goal of this group is for Dunstable to actually be part of the conversation when the budget decisions are happening
Right.
now.
Get in front of
Because
it.
Groton is making their budget, has to have a balanced budget, present a balanced budget by the end of the calendar year. And so.
Groton town or the school?
Town.
Yeah.
Town.
Yeah.
So, but because of that, the schools are kind of on a similar time frame.
Right.
Because Groton has to be,
Yep.
So at the very least, we're bringing people together to start the conversation early so that we can at least share our perspective as part of that process. How much that does and what good that does is yet to be determined. But I think it's a good start. I've been attending the Groton Town Managers Working Group. I've been to 2 of those meetings. I was just at one yesterday. And so they're having similar conversations there too.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a good opportunity for me to add input to even their discussions when I'm over there.
Yeah.
And so they at least are keeping in mind our position when they're talking. So
I think it's great that you're doing that. But I thought you said you prettied this up. The numbers are.
Well, it's more descriptive.
No, it's
But
just-
it's
No, I'm kidding. But, yeah.
it's still ugly, unfortunately.
The numbers are ugly.
Last week or 2 ago, you said that the school was asking for like a 14+% increase.
Right.
You said it's even worse than that now, is that?
No. So in the initial forecasting document that I put together, I just carried over, it was a 6% increase because that was the average over the last 3 or 4 years. So I just carried the 6% into 25. It's worse now because they think they're gonna need more than that, more than 6%.
They gave us a huge number a couple months ago, but
Well, that's what I
yeah,
had.
but there was obviously,
14%.
it's nothing set in stone.
I mean, that's just, why would they even suggest something like that? You know, that's
Because they
something
can.
that They are,
Yeah.
they are just totally, clueless.
Well, that number may have been high because they may not have known what their responsibility for payment for PFAS situation was. Was that something that they were even considering with that
No.
high
No.
number?
Not at
an
all.
Operational budget.
No. Okay.
No.
Not really. It really, like I said, the drivers are the revenue reductions plus
Yeah.
it's mostly salaries with the new negotiations. They're going to see, we
Oh.
expect to see increases.
Do they have any kind of a budget going on yet? They established in their capital plan, they established a new little, sort of, new,
Safety net?
I don't know, in the capital plan, they want to start dumping money
Capital fund,
in the
Capital improvement
capital,
fund.
in the capital plan. Have they done that yet? So, is that something we can look forward to also, being asked to fund? And that's of course for PFAS, and that's for the union school, all of the important stuff that, I'm sure they think they'll be, will be thrilled to have funded, but Is there any money in that fund yet, do you know?
I don't.
There isn't anything in it right now.
Because that was they just established that last year, I think. right?
No, we established it several years ago. It was never
Oh,
funded.
it was never funded.
And they decided they were gonna do that, and I cautioned against it. And they didn't put any money into it. And at this point in time, they haven't put any money into it either. I mean, they're still developing some of this, but, you know, they're starting out with a number that is so high that it's just, as I said to her, you know, we're restricted by Prop 2.5, and so too are you guys. And, you know, they're just, you know, it's
They are
negotiations.
restricted.
Hmm?
The school is restricted.
Sure they are, by
They
the
should.
municipalities.
But they don't follow that.
Yeah.
We're restricted, and because of that restriction,
They should be restricted.
downstream, they should be, they're not, but
They're not.
downstream, they are, because Groton and Dunstable own that school district. And, you know, and we're restricted by 2.5, and that just kind of flows down. You know, Groton is in a similar situation, I'm not sure you know, but Groton's looking for a $10 million override,
Oh, good.
operational override, plus the 16 million as a debt exclusion for the water line. So they're looking for $26 million from the taxpayers. Yeah.
Well, you know, they just, every time I was watching the meeting the other night, they got free money coming from here, free money coming from someplace else. And it just seems like they, you know, they do all right for themselves. And I don't, with everything they have going on over there, I know they have better, you know, better tax base than we do, but,
Yeah, and then they have pilot agreements with the schools that are there, and so, you know, there's money. And Groton Light kicks in money into the town as well. That utility company is putting money into the municipal budget. They're a municipal-owned utility.
They're significantly larger than our town, so like, none of this is really a surprise.
None of it is. All right, moving on to our next favorite subject, which is PFAS. Mr.
Do you want to take it? Do you want me to start, or what do you want to do?
You two guys are on that working group.
Yeah, well, we can tag team it. So we met with it was our working group for the PFAS, which included Jason and myself, Mark Haddad and Allison Manoujian, she's a select board member in Groton, Paul Brinkman from the Pepperell Water Department, John, I don't recall, Tom from the Groton Water, and two men from the Environmental Partners, and then Dr. Chesson and Sherry Kiersey.
John O'Brien.
And John O'Brien from our Water Commission. And God, it was like a 2.5-hour meeting of the minds, then separating of the minds and meeting of the minds. Separating of the minds and ultimately coming to hopefully a conclusion, but we did come to agreement on what we would like to put forward for the solution for this, and it involves the three towns. It's sort of a blending of the three ideas that were presented originally. It would sort of solve the problem for the school. It would solve the problem for the town, the houses in Dunstable and Groton that are affected by PFAS presently. It would provide a water connection to Pepperell. It would provide a water connection from Groton and one from Dunstable that at any point could be, the interconnections could shift water going in different ways. But ultimately, the water supply for Pepperell and Dunstable would remain between us as a sort of enterprise thing. And Groton would do the school. Groton has been pretty adamant about wanting to solve it essentially on their own by building their own water line to the high school and then capturing the Dunstable properties. We've been very adamant, and our board made our decision to stay with the three-town pathway. And I think we did walk out of that yesterday with sort of that agreement of going with the regional approach. You can probably talk about the numbers and all that other stuff more so than I.
No, I think you summarized it pretty well. It's a blended approach that brings water from Groton to the high school and to the Kemp Street properties initially. That's kind of a phase one.
Yeah.
Phase two, would be, no, I'm sorry.
Phase one would do,
Yes,
right to the school and the properties initially. So that's our
And that's the Groton line doing that.
it's Groton line doing that. And then phase two would make the Pepperell Dunstable connection.
Though the only
So-
benefit to phase two would be us selling water to Pepperell and sharing our town water with those, say, 15 or so, 20 houses, whatever that is
currently.
currently. But we'd still be paying our 23% of the portion of the project for our school responsibility. And we would have no ability to cover or reduce the costs because they are adamant about their ownership of said process.
We may have an opportunity to reduce, so the project that Leah just reviewed is about $3 million more than the Groton.
And it's for this
solution.
middle section right
The
here.
$3 million is the additional cost of the pipe from Kemp to Jersey, right, Leah?
Yeah,
So because of Pepperell's involvement in that portion of the project, we may be able to get some reduced cost for that $3 million. That's extra, quote unquote, extra. Just because they're an environmental justice community, they have the added benefit of being able to get principal forgiveness under the state revolving fund program. So that's kind of a yet to be determined. There was also discussion around what the finances are going to be, financial contributions are going to be with that $3 million ad, because it's mostly all, to your point, it's mostly all benefiting Dunstable and Pepperell. So Groton was questioning that. So there are questions in terms of the details and the cost sharing for this project, but yeah, it's a blended approach. It's more expensive, about $3 million more than the Groton project. It's about double the cost of the Pepperell Dunstable project. As you remember, Groton is, at the moment, I believe, still willing to contribute an additional $1 million to keep our contribution.
but it would still go up a little bit because of that added connection, so we would stay,
That's correct.
so we'd go from like the 62 to maybe 80 or something, right?
Yeah, the cost share for the town
Yeah,
would be from 62 to, I think it's close to 90.
is it close?
A year, 90,000 a year, I think.
So part of this section here is already being covered by Pepperell, and they already have money allocated for that. And the Groton the town has voted to put forward like 16 million to do this. But
When
they
did
have
they-
not yet had a debt exclusion
No,
to
right,
actually
Right, so
fund it.
Right.
Yeah,
They haven't
the
gone.
board supported it, but they haven't got the public support.
No, town meeting.
Town
supported
meeting supported it, but they voted to support it, but they didn't vote on
a debt exclusion.
the
The
funding
ballot.
mechanism yet.
Okay,
So that's still something they have to sort out.
okay.
I mean, I think there's a lot of frustration with everybody that's there, and for good reason. Every town wants to be doing the best to provide for their own residents, all of them. And that's what our jobs are. And at the same time, trying to solve a problem when the problem goes across 2 town lines, really, 3, if, you know. And each party thinks that they can perhaps do it the best way.
Yeah.
When we have an approach, before all this, what we voted on originally is the least expensive, fastest way to go about it. But Groton just is not on board with that. And they have their reasons for that. I'm not going to judge for what it is or the other. They just have voted to do something different, just like we have voted to do something different. But we have to get something done. And this is where we eventually came up, that the 3 towns were like, okay, well, let's try this. There may be some roadblocks that we may hit that may end up having to put us in one direction or the other, but this regional approach is something that when the DEP, we did have a meeting with the DEP last week, and they were, you know, they didn't rubber stamp it by any means, but they said, we like that approach. It works. There are some things you have to deal with interbasin transfers and permits and this, that, and the other thing, but they thought it was a good approach to be able to deal with a 3-town PFAS issue.
At a plus $3 million to our.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, yeah, and that
For us
3
to
million
absorb.
is not, there's.
Ballpark.
Which everyone has been saying it's likely more than it's less, could be less.
So
Nothing's ever less, but they say it could be, so,
The 3 million is the total additional.
yeah.
If you just run it through the school contribution formula, it's an additional 23. If it is 77.23%,
Yeah.
it's an additional $23,000 a year on top of these are just estimated, obviously, but on top of the 62,000. If we get the state revolving fund loan at 0% interest. So that's roughly the additional cost if it's the school contribution split.
Yeah,
And that's before we've done our version of our Pepperell Dunstable connection, even though we believe Pepperell is going to potentially pick up a good chunk of that because of the benefit to them.
well, this is anticipated to, we haven't signed anything.
We
but-
believe Pepperell is going to pick up the entire cost of that.
Okay.
Yeah. They need it, they're,
Yeah, I know they need it.
they are, yeah, Paul's very, very eager to get another water source into their town, and it benefits us too. You can switch it and have it go the other way. If
Right.
if we are ever in need for
Like a
water.
rail yard.
Yeah,
Whichever way the tracks run.
yeah, and
So as a resident, I mean, how do we,
well, first of all, we have to find a solution to this.
well, we have to give a proposal by
And,
January 31st.
and
Yeah,
then
but the
still find right,
The
because,
proposal is the solution.
right.
We've got to be able to say to the state, this is what we're going to do, here's how it's going to get done.
And there's still a tremendous amount of review and permitting that has to go through, and there could be tweaks in this along the way, but we do have to have a solid proposal before to meet that date. If we don't, DEP will, like we did with the water tower and our whole water system, will be putting a consent order on the 2 towns, I would assume,
No,
or
put
the
on the
school
district.
district, on the school district, and say, this is how we're going to fix it. Here's the bill,
Mhm.
pay it. And
And the
money is not a concern for them.
And the town of Groton, because they're the lead, they're going to be the lead. They're going to borrow the money.
Yeah,
They're working up against the deadline for their fall town meeting, which that's kind of,
right.
that right now, at the moment, is one of the drivers for coming to a decision quickly, because,
And
They
our
need to-
meeting Monday night with them.
yeah, they basically need this, because they need to get the ballot printed and, everything else.
So we could make a decision tonight. Say, all right, we support this phase 1 approach from the Groton water line to bring water to the school.
Well, we have to approve it as a whole. in order for the DEP process. We
Both
can't,
of the towns.
yeah,
And there's no backpedaling from this.
There's no backpedaling?
Because Groton backpedaled numerous times. So like, why all, but, I know obviously they have a timeline, of course.
There might be backpedaling and why do I say that is because there's a debt exclusion involved. And if it goes to the ballot and the debt exclusion fails, then you're back to the drawing board.
Okay.
That's the backpedal. We're in that same seat,
right.
right?
And then
We need funding. There's going to be a debt exclusion to the town of Dunstable.
a big one
and-
for Groton.
And well, Groton's looking for, a grandiose plan. And if that doesn't make it to the ballot,
Then it could go back to this.
you're gonna go. Yeah,
Plan one. I mean,
Yeah, that's the
Which is
backpedal.
Pepperell bringing the water to the high school. basically.
Yeah.
Right, and us, yeah.
And us, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
So
we
there's-
could have 2 votes then at our town meeting. Because would we have a fall town meeting?
I don't think we're doing anything on that, though, are we, for this?
I
So
think
we could.
we may have to do
could.
something
We
on
could.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna go to the spring ballot and put a debt exclusion and an operational override on the
Bingo.
ballot at the same
Yeah.
time.
Just
Yeah,
took
yeah,
the
yeah.
words right out of my mouth.
Yeah,
was
no,
like,
I agree.
You're just setting yourself up for failure
Yeah.
with that.
And the other thing they're looking for is the IMA for town council.
We don't have an IMA yet.
I mean,
That's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They want Brian Falk. basically.
Brian was drafting that for Groton though.
And then, yeah.
for both of us.
Yeah, but
And
Groton's
this, they're
paying the
looking for
bill.
this Monday,
They're looking for the IMA on Monday?
They're looking for.
to use, to share town council.
they're
they
looking for approval
really like
to
Brian.
share.
Yeah. So Brian started drafting this for Groton. Okay.
We have a draft IMA for both communities.
Okay, can we? Okay.
For both
Here,
communities
I-
to share,
share?
not for the details of.
No,
project,
just
but
to share town council.
Okay, so and they want that vote on Monday.
That's, yes.
Can you just be sure that that our board gets a copy of that before Monday?
Oh, yeah.
All right, because I don't, just so we're not walking in there and reading, walking and talking at the same time, because I'm not good at walking and talking at the same time.
Absolutely, of course. Yep.
Do we need to meet with them to do that?
We
What's
do.
the point? I asked because having rewatched that meeting where everyone was here, wasn't the most cooperative night, I wouldn't say.
It
So I-
wasn't.
I don't know what benefits
Because I
us
think
from
both
having
boards,
everyone here
both
together.
boards need to meet and vote to approve it.
But we could vote now and they could vote at their meeting and that could be the end of it.
But we don't have it yet. We want to read it first.
We think it's.
I hesitate to sit down with them and again, after having watched that meeting.
We can be civil. I mean, we've had our 2 working meetings and I had my little hissy fit in the meeting yesterday with them and we all walked away fine.
That's, I mean, optics, right? Like.
Yeah.
But
Okay, I know, I understand. But it just
We see you,
before I
Joan.
lose, just give me a second, before I lose track, all right?
Yep.
And this is for us, right? The IMA that we are being asked to do is for town council to
Mhm.
draft this document.
That's the only
No,
one
I'll-
right now.
Just to share Brian and then
Yeah.
it's to
To
get.
right, to put this document together.
Yes.
Brian's being
The-
shared with the
Yes.
understanding that we're gonna create an IMA,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How's the bill getting paid for? How's Myra being paid? Do we know, we haven't had this,
Well, I think we were discussing about that would be the 77-23 split,
well.
right? I mean, or not. That's,
Don't know.
I don't know, that's what.
I don't know either.
I mean,
So-
Groton, because we took this away from the district back in months ago, right? We said the 2 towns will get this resolved. So maybe Groton is of the understanding this is gonna be a 50-50 thing. I don't know, but I think we gotta have that conversation sooner rather than later because we gotta, there's dollars associated with this and you gotta find it in your current year's operating budget.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to that is if I were on the board, I would look at this, go to the meeting, have the debate, identify the issues that are outstanding, and then determine if you're comfortable with sharing town council based on that. If there are significant issues that are outstanding that need to be discussed / negotiated between the towns of Dunstable and Groton, the board needs to consider whether or not that can be done through sharing town council. I'm not suggesting it can't be, by the way, don't take this the wrong way, but that's a consideration that the board needs to really think about.
It's hard for a person to wear two hats.
If
It's almost impossible.
if
You're
there are-
referring to
I mean,
Brian?
it could make it streamlined, but
True, but in this
Yeah.
particular case, we're not adversaries. And there is an agreement in place in principle with Myrick that whenever there's a legal issue, Dunstable is going to come top of the list and Groton will have to go find an attorney.
is that true?
That is absolutely true.
I don't think Groton,
Believe me, I
Believes
tell you,
that.
it's very true.
Yeah.
I don't think they are,
I
don't think they're interpreting that document the same way.
I,
If there is actually a document that
So-
says that.
When Myrick wanted to do legal work for the town of Groton, they came to us and asked us. And we said, sure, but if there ever is a matter where the two towns are in opposition to each other, Myrick would represent Dunstable and not Groton. And that's ditto for Greater Lowell Tech at the same time.
You may
Because
need to conjure up that document.
it's been discussed and everybody understands it that way, so
And I'll just say.
I'm not sure,
I'm pretty
They
sure
do.
about it.
Practice is
that
different
was
than
not
what's
the
on
tone of the
paper.
conversation yesterday.
Okay, well then, it's,
But I agree, we're not adversaries. That's
Yeah.
why I said I don't want it,
Right.
we are certainly not adversaries in this. And I think the last working group meetings have shown that we can actually
Yeah.
get together and work together on this. But that said, my point remains that you do have to consider that, like, if the financial contribution is not set, if the $3 million addition, how's that going to be shared? If that's a question. If, how are the Kemp Street properties going to be turned over to the Dunstable water
Yeah.
source once, and when is that going to happen? And how's it going to? Like, there are some issues that are going to need to be negotiated between the two communities. And so the question is whether or not they're so significant that we may not be able to share. I'm not making any suggestions. It's just something we should consider.
So we don't have that agreement yet.
No.
And to Ron's point, we're going to get it before Monday night's meeting, and then we're going to do a live rototill negotiation with them.
Well, I don't, that's the,
So like Monday seems too soon then. That
Well,
seems silly.
but they have a deadline
Yeah, they have-
for,
they're-
to
We
submit
haven't
their
met as a
warrant.
board to discuss it. We wouldn't
I
have done
know.
it on the MCO project. We wanted to meet as a board before we wanted to move forward.
Well,
Same principle.
we
here.
could post and we could meet again before, if anybody's up
Like-
for it, but
Again, we're being rushed into this by a town.
and I do want to say, it is possible. It is possible I may have a draft. I'm not sure. A draft of this IMA
yeah.
may be in my inbox.
Mhm.
I don't, it's possible.
Well,
So-
half your day was without
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
email and
correct.
power or whatever at the town hall, so.
I mean, it's just like
Mark
we're
may have said.
tortoise in the hair here. Like we're racing all of a sudden to get this in where it's like, hey, that's never benefited our board.
Yeah,
I'm just one of three.
so let's do this, because to Leah's point, and Karen's point, I think if we have it, let's send it out to our board so it's socialized correctly. I think the document is relatively benign. I don't think it's intrusive or restrictive in any way. It's like an LOA, a letter, it's. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. New business, old business? I'm sorry, Mrs. Simmons.
I hate to blurt out, but sometimes you give me no alternative. I just have a couple questions. Number one, is Dunstable getting any kind of a improvement in our water line for this new option that is being talked about?
The water line doesn't exist.
So it'd be with Pepperell, there would be a new water line coming from Pleasant Street all the way along Groton Street up to the town line.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So we would have what, all the way up to what, to Groton? To the
Yeah.
town line?
Yeah,
So we-
to the town
we
line.
get that, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, these are, yeah, so,
Conceptually.
yeah, conceptually, yeah.
And let's see now, so as far as paying for that, now, we're gonna be expected to pay for 25%.
That portion, conceptually, Pepperell is paying for because they want our water.
They want our water, but, they could get it a lot easier than putting in a line to Groton. What,
I'm not
Well,
sure
there
about
are
that.
two ways
ways,
to
right.
do it. And this could conceptually could happen regardless of this whole PFAS issue. So Pepperell they want our water. They've set aside money already for that, for a line to come through. And it could either go along 113 into Pepperell, or in order to address the problem of the PFAS at the high school and our Kemp Street properties, it could go along Groton Street. And then in order to loop it back, there's that new section that we are talking about that would tie it together and then go back into Pepperell along North and Jersey Street. So Pepperell wants to do this regardless.
they're willing to pay to put the line in up Groton?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, their wells, he's feeling his wells are very stressed.
Yeah.
This is a supply issue for them
Yeah.
that gets
Well,
solved.
That's great. Another question too, I've talked to a couple of people who seem to think that if Dunstable is paying for 25% of Groton's improvement along Chicken Tree Road, that we should get 25% of the proceeds that the school will be, kicking in for that wall. Is that anything that anybody has mentioned?
So I think that, I'm doing this from memory, is that this $1 million contribution to the project,
I think that will cover the.
I think that's-
enchilada.
I think that's coming from that thought. Yeah. Because that money currently does not exist, according to Tom
Oh,
Orcutt.
yeah, well, they're planning on selling all this water to the school, and, 25% of that $1 million is gonna be coming from us.
Yeah,
23 is what we're talking
And then the rest of it is,
a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Nobody-
they're gonna get the money right back, right?
It's a circle.
Yeah.
It
That's
is
all
a
Yeah, it's just a circle.
So, either way,
it is.
So yeah, there's still a lot to figure out.
So we do have a draft.
Okay.
And I believe it was circulated at the PFAS meeting. So you should have a copy of it.
Oh,
Well,
As
I
a-
don't have a copy of it.
It wasn't there, so I
It should
definitely
be in
don't
the
have one.
binder, I think.
okay,
In the binder.
all right.
And
Under what section?
If you look at the,
Under section 6? Just PFAS? Oh, here it is, right? Is this it?
is the old stuff in here, Sue? Sorry. Bridget. It's under tab 3. And that was from our last meeting with the Groton Select Board. the joint meeting. And so, as I was looking at this, it did, I remember talking about the legal bills themselves will be billed to the school district.
That's
And I
right,
remember
what I was
talking about
thinking,
this
yeah.
now that I saw it.
I see that on page 2.
Yeah, they will be charged to the school district and then obviously paid for by.
Then it's the,
each town,
then
but
it's the
this-
20,
it's the-
73, right, that's what I was
You got it.
saying, the split,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
My apologies for not remembering.
That's okay. You did remember it, just later.
All right, so we're gonna have to look at this.
Yes.
But I think, if we could you just,
Want me to email it?
yeah, can you, to us?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Excuse me.
I'll email it to everybody.
We ready to move on? New business? Cindy?
Yes. Yes. I am unfamiliar with coming to you guys, so, Cindy Sullivan, I've been in town for.
Yeah, you want to just identify yourself and just get on the record.
I've been in town for 29 years, I've raised 3 kids, started in Swallow Union, and come through Groton School. As a little context, I'm gonna give you here, in April or May, Alan Cheney gives those talks on Mondays.
Yeah,
The last
Monday
couple of
morning
years, I've done them. And on one of them this year, I met Jason, the town administrator. And during the walks, everyone was talking about the town meeting that was that night. And about, at that point, Proposition 2.5, the override was on the board. And there was discussion, I want to go to the town meeting. Over the years, I've been to a handful of towns. Like I said, I'm one of those people that, I go, I listen, and then I forget about it for years. I heard a lot of frustration, anger, and fear, same as I did 29 years ago. Same issues. So I listened, and I went home, and I lying in bed at night. I'm thinking, all right, we're intelligent people. Can't we come up with some ideas here to help the town out? We all want the same thing. We just all, nobody knows what to do, and we disagree on how to get what we need. But financially, things are as I've heard tonight, critical, dire, and we're not alone. The whole country's in this state. But let's focus on our town. So I started thinking, and that's what this came from. A lot of the stuff you're already gonna be familiar with, meaning I'm not gonna tell you anything that, it's a short presentation, I don't wanna take up too much of your time. There's virtually 11 quick slides.
Okay.
So
Let's see 'em.
And what I'm looking for really, is I thought about this, what am I looking for from you guys? Your opinion, your feedback, which is more professional, sort of, and then direction, suggestions. We're dealing with limited intelligence here. I came up with an idea, and maybe this idea, I don't know whether it's right for Dunstable or not, but maybe it will actually be a catalyst for people coming up with other ideas, because right now, there's not too many options that we have here. I might be wrong, and hopefully you'll let me know if that's the case. So, where are we? Here we are. I've got
Just press the space bar.
what's that? Oh, I've got to wait for it.
Yeah.
All right, taxes are increasing each year, you know this. The common perceptions of why. Now, this is from my personal talking to people, but again, I don't think this is anything new to you. There's virtually no industry in town to help defer taxes. There's consistently rising school costs. New people in town want additional services and offerings. And then there's always, we want the expansion. It's not we want. Sometimes these things are federally mandated, that there are new rules and regulations. Fire department, town expenses, salaries, insurance, pensions, etc. And as we've kind of, again, talked about tonight, undefined or no limits on spending, seemingly.
That's interesting.
In what way?
I'm just not,
Did I put that down?
no, not that's maybe you can explain that more, because they're saying that we have no limits on spending. We are
No,
just spending.
When I say that,
Okay.
again, it's, I put this together.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I
Right.
just,
Mainly when it's between Groton and Dunstable, we think of, especially the school system.
Mhm.
There doesn't seem to be any limits on what they ask for. In
The
other
school.
words, Yes,
okay.
yes. All right, next slide. Oh, right here. Even without addressing those things that I just mentioned, the costs are going to continue due to inflation. They can continue to rise in the state of the economy. The financial stress that exists for the town as well as the residents will likely remain substantial and constant, even if we address all of these things. Okay, priorities. Oh, I gotta wait.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, when I moved to this town, I thought I was moving to the end of nowhere. And
The end of where?
Nowhere.
no, I moved from Chelmsford. Before that, I lived in Boston. When I got out of school, I love this town, and COVID actually really catapulted that. I want to retain the undeveloped character of the town. We want to continue to enjoy and protect the conservation of town-owned land. Absolutely. We want to avoid an increase in motor traffic. We want to maintain a good school without overly burdening those without school-age children, or with school-age children, without overburdening. That's the key here.
Yeah.
We want to keep the town affordable, and we want to achieve a sustainable and balanced financial budget. Sustainable, that's key too. I would think it's incredibly frustrating, never to be able to have money to actually manage. You're always, short, always. Again, none of these things are new to you. Covering the taxes right now, I'm gonna point out current options, and then when I say positive impact, negative impact, again, off the top of my head, there are more things that could be added to this. I wanted to put something quick together, simple, so that I could get your opinion before anything further is done.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure,
Can
absolutely.
we put the camera on that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Can you move that chair, Karen?
Let me know what we're doing. Okay. Right now, how do we cover taxes? The taxpayers, mainly. Mainly. And the positive impact is the town footprint remains the same, meaning we have all this land, we have all this beauty. It's very undeveloped. The negative impact is a lot of resident stress. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of friction between Groton and Dunstable because of the school system issues. And we continually fail to achieve a balanced budget. That's what we're stuck with right now. Again, nothing new to you, but somehow putting it out there and articulating it.
Well, we have to provide a balanced budget every year. So we do end up with a balanced budget, but it's not always the budget we want, right? So, yeah.
You're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
We could allow additional industry. This is one of our options that we have currently. When I say potentially significant increase in tax base. I don't know how much industry we would need. I don't know. Again, I'm just throwing this out there.
33 single-owned businesses generating, I think it's like $300,000 a year tax revenue or something like that. It's like
That's because we have a single tax rate.
right. There's an equation actually
Right, okay.
Yeah.
to figure out how many businesses you would need.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Negative impact. Again, all of this is speculation.
Sure,
But
no, I
you
understood.
know, it's gonna change the town footprint. By town footprint, as I'm sure you understand, I'm talking about the free land. I'm talking about, you know, traffic, town services, you know, those things are gonna be affected. That is an option. Another option is allow additional housing. My opinion is that there's a probability of insignificant increase in a tax base due to that. I mean, you know, even if it doesn't impact the school, how many houses are needed to actually help? Again, it'll change the town footprint, it'll be a strain on the school system, potentially. We could decrease town services, probably insignificant increase. And that's gonna create resident stress as well as risk. So in my mind, I could be wrong, but these are the options right now that we're looking at. These are kind of the only ones we have. I have tried playing the lottery and that hasn't worked out. Okay, so the problem statement. Wait for it. And it doesn't show up. There we go. How can we achieve a financially stable and self-sustaining Dunstable on a consistent basis? How can the town acquire a significant and yearly source of revenue without affecting the town footprint?
Other than our override, you asking?
Well, yes, but that, I mean, that is an option here.
And that's our
There we go. But
mechanism right now.
unfortunately, there are any answers that do not have drawbacks.
Right.
I mean, this is the reality. There are no perfect solutions. As stated above, additional industry will change the footprint of the town. It's doubtful that additional housing, reducing current town services will gain significant revenue. Keeping the status quo option of having taxpayers cover rising costs is not viable for many, if not most families. However, the good news for me is I don't decide what's good for the town. Actually, you guys don't even decide. It's the residents.
Right.
And if that's what the people want, that you've got to be able to cover the costs, then so be it. Again, I'm just trying to come up with, you know, an option, if possible. The goal is to create a source of revenue. No surprise. I keep saying this over and over. It will consistently cover the yearly rising costs of town expenses and school expenses. So I'm lying in bed, I'm thinking, what does Dunstable have? And we have land. We have land, which is a good thing. But how can this land be used to create revenue without changing the footprint of the town? How can we make it work for us? Well, potential solution, here we go. Those are the ones that we have right now that I already laid out. And here's the moment of truth that came to me. Okay. There you go, Joan. It's okay. It's all right. Either this is, you know, an option, or I'm crazy, or both. But to put it out there and articulate it, those top four options, you know, if people see that in black and white, maybe they understand that even if we keep the status quo and taxpayers, and you know, settle for what we're doing now, at least they understand that, you know, because all this anger and frustration, that's you get a lot of the time. It's, you know, it's misguided. So I did a bunch of research. I'm talking about a commercial cannabis greenhouse, an enclosed greenhouse. The positive impact, the town footprint remains the same. There's no additional strain on the school system. There potentially will be a significant, consistent yearly revenue. And there's a potential for achieving a balanced budget, and, you know, as Leah said, you do achieve that every year. But this is a little bit different. Like I mentioned, it's having potentially money to actually be able to manage, rather than always dealing with a shortfall and having to go to the taxpayers and saying, we never know. Negative impact. All right, let's talk about it. Location problems, potential smell issues, safety issues, popular opinion in the town buy-in, and that's absolutely going to be difficult. I could say maybe not, but I've been around long enough, and yes, I think this is going to be it's a controversial option. Is it an option? That's what we're going to talk about. Historically, when legalization was voted on in Massachusetts, Dunstable did vote no. Why? I was at the town meeting for this. The primary concerns at the time, the smell. People were very concerned about that. Potential risk of having to hire armed guards for safety issues. Again, these are legitimate issues. I mean, meaning concerns, not issues, concerns. And moral questions specific to cannabis being a gateway drug. All right, cannabis has been legal now in Mass for 5 years, I believe. And information exists that addresses these issues. Again, I did a bunch of online research. It's one of the good things that comes out of the internet. The smell. It can be minimized by greenhouse design. I have at the end of the presentation a page of links on information. There is technology now. There's fans. Harvest time. That's when the smell might come into it because again, it's a greenhouse. It's not open. Will it be there? Let's say it is. Well, would I be willing to have that smell next to my house? Preferably not. However, I wouldn't be able to live next to one of the farms either. I'm just pointing it out. Again, these are legitimate concerns to be talked about in the town. Full transparency. It needs, people need to be able to get their fear and anxiety and concerns addressed. Massachusetts has licensing for safety protocols. It's really basically a lockdown environment. Farms exist in Massachusetts as well in other legalized cannabis states, and there doesn't appear to be the need for armed guards. We're in a better position than we were 5 years ago when the town was looking at this, as far as the state goes, because there's more information on that. Cannabis has become more acceptable legalization, both in regards to recreational as well as medical usage. It's now seen similar to the alcohol industry. I'm closer to 70 than I am 60. My high school and college years were in the 70s. I have a more relaxed perspective on it. But we're not here to discuss usage or selling it in a retail store at all. We're talking about something very high level that would be sold best to distributors. Oh, cannabis. It's a natural part of the plant world and it can be grown organically. And let's not lose sight. It has the potential to be viewed as a right to farm community crop. Dunstable is a right to farm community. We could do the same thing with corn and generate revenue. I think we would all jump on that. This is going to be a different conversation. So, proposal. This is just an initial proposal for Dunstable to create a committee to explore the possibility of an indoor cannabis growing facility, a greenhouse, on property owned by the town and/or on privately owned farming land within the town, run by in-town farmers under a cooperative alliance. My oldest owns a business in Maryland, and she's the one that when I started talking to her about this, she said, "You realize there's tax structures such that the town can benefit from this, or the farmers can benefit, or both can benefit by forming these alliances." Again, I'm not smart enough, I'm not educated enough as far as this goes to understand. But it's something that needs to, that can be looked into. before town approval is even pursued, I think, in my opinion, a formal business plan would need to be written and submitted. That includes, not limited to, projected revenue, projected startup and maintenance costs, locations, acreage proposals, business structure, tax consideration. And how we're gonna ensure that the revenue is only controlled by the town in the long term. But one thing we don't wanna do is bring a company in here to set it all up, and then, like, we're dependent on them. It's gotta be done intentionally and smart. And then again, I'm sure there'll be many, many things I'm missing or that need to be expanded on. Final thoughts. It's only a matter of time before cannabis becomes legal nationally. It's already on the board. I saw that in the news a week and a half ago. Let's be smart and intentional. Let's define the benefits as well as the drawbacks of moving forward with it. It's a business venture. It's currently illegal in New Hampshire, however, it's probably only a matter of time. Once that happens, most probably New Hampshire's gonna jump on that. So let's try to get ahead of it and establish a customer base before that happens. What we don't want, like I mentioned, is to bring in a corporation that'll have a stake in the profits. This last one, I don't even know if this is possible, especially with that camera behind me. I'm concerned and I'm nervous about conversation in town, about people hearing that word and not taking it seriously.
Hearing what word?
Cannabis.
Cannabis, oh.
Or getting angered by it, or thinking it's, like, no, we don't want that associated with this town. I understand that, but again, what are our options for getting the town so that on a yearly basis, we're gonna be okay? That it doesn't have to be the Board of Selectmen begging people to come up with the money.
Well, cannabis is legal in Dunstable.
It
to
is.
grow. There's
Yeah.
a limit on the size of a field where you're saying greenhouse to do. But
So
And
just,
what's the limit, do you have?
it was, what is it? I think
5,000
it's
square
5, well, to grow in a field
To
is.
grow, it was you could greenhouse, you could have 5,000 square feet outdoor, it's on,
The smallest,
Yeah.
5 acres, wasn't it?
no, five,
Because there was someone that came before us last year sometime, and they wanted to be able to grow, and we would have to change the bylaw to increase the field size.
I think the greenhouse,
Well, the
greenhouse size was 5,000 square feet.
Right.
In what-
I'm talking about, yeah, I know the green, but I'm talking about
There's no
open,
outdoor, this is, there's no
All right.
outdoor growing,
yeah,
only greenhouse growing, and
yeah,
it's allowed anywhere in town,
right.
by right.
so
So
let me help you out a little bit here, all right? The idea has merit to it, what you're saying, right? But, and you can jump in here if you want, and I encourage you to we have had, I believe, 3 people come to the town and ask for permission to do this. 1 was declined and 2 were approved.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna give you my perspective on this.
2 greenhouses. Yeah.
The 5,000 square foot greenhouse is not enticing to anybody to grow pot and do it commercial. These greenhouses that are being built to grow this stuff are in the order of 100,000 square feet, right? So let me just finish here. The 2 applicants that we approved went off, and as of this day, it's been some number of years now
Oh,
that,
yeah,
and they have not grown a single plant.
4, yeah.
Hmm.
4 or
Not
5
a
years.
plant. Why? We don't know. We really don't
Scale.
know. There's
I
a
know
lot
one of
of,
them
there
is
are a
scale.
lot of restrictions, or I shouldn't say restrict, I don't want to say restrictions. There are guidelines that direct how these things are going to be done in the town, right? And, yeah, it's a right to farm community. We've got Pat Nod and we've got the Tullys, and why not have somebody in growing this stuff? But my perspective, and I'm in the electrical contracting business, some of these greenhouses, the electrical work in these greenhouses is close to $5 million, all right, with lighting and different levels of lighting and ventilation and all. I have seen this get done out in the western part of the state, and I've been involved in one of them more specifically. I get it. We don't, a 5,000 square foot greenhouse, that's their service building is 5,000 square feet.
What's that translate to acreage wise? I don't know.
5,000 square feet was 40,000 square feet to an acre.
So this building here is probably 4,000 square feet as a building,
About 7,500.
7,500. This building that we're in.
So when you
Square
look
feet.
at the investment that has to get made into all of the infrastructure
It's
to
not.
grow this stuff, it's not, you know, the folks that wanted to do these, that wanted to grow pot, had existing facilities.
Well,
And
one of them did.
one of them did, right.
He
The
was
other
gonna
one
build,
was,
and he was gonna do it hydroponically or something.
Yeah.
But
so it's not something that, you know, this board and the select boards before have not restricted this or discouraged it in any way. We just simply don't have someone's got to come up with an idea to say, I want to build a 100,000 square foot greenhouse and I'm going to grow pot in the thing. And where do I do it and how do I do it? Well, the truth is, the way the existing bylaws are written, you can't have a 100,000 square foot greenhouse. You have a 5,000 square foot greenhouse, which is pretty insignificant.
and bylaws can change.
They can,
But there needs to be real impetus in order
to drive that
to
change.
drive that
And it's
change.
like the number of farms in the town, say there's eight, 5, 8.
There's a few.
So theoretically, could they each have 5,000 square foot greenhouse?
Could they each have?
5,000 square feet.
5,000 square foot greenhouse.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could.
So it's not, the 5,000 square feet isn't limited to the town, it's limited to the facility.
Correct,
Yeah,
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
To a property, yeah.
To the parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but to your point, and each of those then have to be individually wired in, all.
And it has to fit on the property, meeting certain guidelines and, distances from property lines and whatever.
It's
Haven't done that in a while, but
ventilation,
there's a
it's
lot.
lighting,
Yes,
it's
yes.
access. It's not about a fence and armed guards guarding the place, because I think today, all this many years later, okay, people have become acclimated or accustomed to the fact that this stuff is not bad. You can go down the street here and see this place over here that's Nature's Remedy, all right?
Yeah.
And you can go to Air and look at Gage over in Air and see the crowd that waits out there. So I think people have become more acclimated to it, that it's not this hideous thing that no one wants to get involved in.
Right.
But in terms of growing that here in the town, you'd have to come up with an area that would be sufficient enough to be able to put the number of greenhouses in, or a greenhouse that's going to drive the revenue to support the business, right? We did have a grower come to this town maybe 5 years ago, and he wanted to grow lettuce, okay? And I forgot the name of the guy. And he was going to buy a piece of property on Lowell Road. At the end of the day, he backed away from it because he couldn't get enough greenhouses into the footprint to make the lettuce operation successful for him. He needed 50 greenhouses, and he was going to only have 10 or 15, whatever it was. And so he walked away from it. And so when you look at the footprint of the town, as you've identified, you got to carve out some spot where you could build a greenhouse of such sufficiency that you generate the revenues to support the damn thing. And that is where this is at. This board,
Then you got to build it in the first.
this
place.
board
Capital
and the
to do
board
it.
prior to that hasn't in any way impeded that. We just haven't. We just don't. The folks that have come forward are mired down in legal expenses. One of them up on Valley Street, he had a financial plan. He had a really detailed business plan. He had everything soup to nuts. Today, this many years later, he hasn't grown a plant yet. And-
I don't think I talked to them at one point, and I don't think they are any longer interested.
Right.
I mean, I think they're back to growing flowers.
Flowers.
Yeah,
And do you know, why is it's just not financially feasible?
Right.
The state regulations, if you've been looking into this, the state regulations on this stuff is incredible.
Extensive.
And it's, yeah, they don't make it easy. You look at Groton, now Groton, nobody's growing it over there, but they have approved 2 retail stores over there.
Pepperell's got 2.
Pepperell has 2.
Right.
And we don't have the retail store
Yeah, when we
here.
talked about this in the planning board, we didn't want to do retail, we did this early on. And, but we felt that, the profit of the town and the profit of the field is for all.
Yeah.
And, we thought that, because marijuana was being used medicinally, that, we could support it to a degree. But, and that's why we're where we are now. But, as far as, I don't know, I have a problem selling marijuana to support the town. Who are you selling it to? You're selling it to your kids, they're already, that's the reason why nobody comes to these meetings, they're all, high.
I don't know about that one, Joan. I don't know about
It's a little
that one.
extreme. But.
Maybe it's why you come to the meetings, Joan.
So, just show up. I'll bring cookies.
Retail stores are not allowed in town at this time, but
Though they would make it killer.
facility is.
Realize there's 15,000 cars a day that come through town. So if you had a retail operation off of Route 3 or here in the center of town, it would be, to Ron's point, nature's remedy. I drove by there this afternoon.
It is packed all the time.
It was 10 o'clock in the morning and they had like 40 cars in the parking lot. I'm like, what the heck are people doing on what's today, Tuesday?
They're getting up.
I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like they have a detail out there the day before Christmas because it's so
Yeah.
busy.
It is packed all the time.
So,
Jason, we're gonna need a.
So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer.
That's what
so
people want.
I like this idea,
but
but
I'm gonna put that on the table since it came up. I mean, I'm not crazy about that option either. But is that an option?
So we don't have any
Talk to the town.
We don't,
B2
you'd have to,
land
yeah.
in town. So you have to go, you would, there's a couple things that would have to happen. You'd have to form your committee, do some research, and you're taking the steps to do that now. You would also have to rezone a parcel so that it could be a retail business operation. So you'd meet with Joan and the planning board. to
It can
get
happen
that-
within the town center district,
Yep.
but there are
So
several
like this,
bylaws
the
that would
building
need to be
behind
changed.
here, the one that was for
Yeah.
sale, that actually still has the for sale sign it. Like there is a space back there that could become a business. I don't know if it could be retail though, Joan, right?
What's that?
The property behind old Peter George's here, the 2-family. Could that building?
Oh, that,
Maybe
oh, yeah, you could
certain
have a nice
types
little
of-
marijuana shop.
Bingo.
On the first floor,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
you'd be allowed to,
you'd house all the workers
do
upstairs.
the
So
apartments
that's
upstairs.
literally what they're doing.
So
like,
this-
that role.
This isn't up here anymore, but so this B3, white out, it's the corridor, right, that borders Tingsboro.
Mhm.
That isn't for,
It's a solar field now.
Solar
It's privately owned.
Yeah.
It's privately owned land and it's a solar field. The family put a
The-
solar farm in there.
How about 91 Rivers?
So you just took the words in my mouth. The other idea, and I'm a believer in we need some revenue and some creative ways to do it. We thought we were going to have a solar field, and the town approved a solar overlay on 91 River Street. It's about
Yeah.
35 acres or so
30.
of
30 acres.
30. And some of it needs to be protected for turtles and natural heritage reasons. There's still other parts of that land that's town owned that we could potentially lease out, though this would be really hard to get support to back it, lease out to a marijuana wholesale farmer, whatever. But you could explore that idea with your committee, with your group, which I think is a
But that
cool
would be
idea.
building, I mean, to build a greenhouse on there.
So the goal,
Because we can't, there's growing fields of it is not allowed under the bylaw. So
but we could change that bylaw. Like that would be-
Right, I
that
mean, the
would be-
bylaws can all be changed, but you know, you're dealing with a tough crowd.
Yeah.
Not us, but I mean,
I
yeah,
understand,
yeah,
right, I understand.
yeah.
But it's the right idea, like that, because the town would be, we would lease the land to XYZ farming, whatever you farm, as long as it's okay, right, to farm through, you could pursue that.
Okay, so back to my original, what I'm looking for from you guys. All right, whether this is, I mean, you know, I first heard, it's really not an option, it's not financially feasible.
That's been what we've seen for the
Yeah. What private,
operations that have come
Yeah.
before us.
small operations as they are currently.
But that
green lights to
includes the
get
River
rid
Street thing, that still would be a small operation.
No, it didn't
No.
include the River Street.
did. So you would have to go through a couple different processes there. You'd have to get the right to grow cannabis outside. That approval would
It's a
come
bylaw
from
change.
planning board to
But
approve it,
Why not?
and then town meeting. It's not, you could only do a 5,000 square foot greenhouse. There's not enough money in it to do that.
And that's what I was saying, so,
Yeah.
so that's still, that 5,000 feet on River Street is still.
It's the same-
that's-
same
that's-
idea.
That's
The same
right?
thing.
However, you could
You
get,
could.
go and say, I want
Revise
an
it.
outside thing, but of course, that's gonna, you know, we live in the Northeast. I mean,
They're
the
not gonna-
outside
you're not
growing
gonna do
season
well
is
with
like,
that.
Yeah,
Though you'd be surprised how successful they are in Vermont, where they do outdoor growing, and some other parts of the country.
right, I thought that was, I researched it, and I wasn't backing on that, they want, you know, the dispensaries want fresh product,
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Year round makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Could you change the size? Could you modify the 5,000 square
You
foot?
I
sh-
suppose.
you could do anything as long as
Yeah.
it's all ground in fact and it's got the right level of support and the right energy behind it. Sure you could.
I
Okay,
think people would be much more amenable.
Amenable?
Now,
Yeah.
you know,
then there were 5 years ago.
right.
Right, I agree, again, I don't know how to move forward with this.
Joan,
I
you have
don't-
greenhouses.
I've never,
Yeah, I
I've
do.
never started a business. I've never,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do with this idea. Is it an idea worth pursuing? That's number one.
I would probably find some other towns in Massachusetts that have, that have,
The online, there's stuff.
that have, go to their facility, if I'm being brutally honest, like,
Yeah.
go and ask them if you're interested in trying to start your own business, just spitball with them.
Right.
And, how did they get to where they are now? How did
Like
they
they're
get to
ready.
become a grow facility that wholesales to, Emporium, whatever, in Pepperell or whatever they're called?
Trust me.
Because the guys at
Another
Treehouse
idea,
Cannabis are wicked.
I don't want to dampen your enthusiasm, but at the same time, I don't want to lead you to the understanding that the town hasn't looked at these things. We have. And there was a lot of fright, I'm going to use that word fright, when this was introduced, when it was introduced in the state, it was like, there was going to be 100,000 more traffic accidents because people are going to drive around high. And there's going to be all these issues the kids are going to have it in school and they're going to be in school high. And the truth of the matter is, it's been now several years. It may be over controlled, but it's been so far well received. And these stores that are selling this stuff, some of them, if you follow this, some of these stores have closed up because they're just simply not able to meet the numbers and pay for the taxes and all the rest of the stuff. So a lot of the smaller stores don't survive, but the ones that do survive are thriving beyond expectation. And this guy in Tingsboro, and there's another one in Air Gauge on over by the
Across
Ford
the golf
deal.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bunch of
It's
little-
well run, and they got a line of people over there, and I'm sure there are others. So my point with this is that we're certainly amenable to having another look at this with some energy, some enthusiasm, and some fresh,
You mean the review
ideas.
of the bylaw?
what she's brought
Well,
forward.
Well, I mean,
there's
you-
two things here. There's the retail store too. I don't know whether you're saying look into a retail store, because I have
We're not
no
telling you
idea.
to do
No, I
anything.
Not telling you anything, that's
But I
right.
don't know how keen the town would be in operating a
Yeah.
growing facility.
Could you do a retail in B1? You could, right? In the existing B1, you could have a retail.
I think so.
If
That's the only, I think that's the only.
Yeah.
if Mirabelle had the right septic size, they could technically run
Yeah.
They
Which
could technically
You
run
have,
a marijuana
Oh,
retail.
yeah?
Yeah.
Property,
Not
you have
the
a
town
nice
center.
piece of property.
Town
next
center
to
overlay.
the,
I don't think so.
Next to the
I
post
don't think it would be
office,
allowed.
that,
Same reason that liquor.
I'm sure,
liquor
the
store.
people that own it would be more than happy to
Where is that? The house next to the post office?
No, it's the Snell
That's
property.
to the right of the post office.
The Snell house?
No, the on the other
Well, the
side.
yellow, with the blue bin property now is what people are
No,
referring
no,
to.
she's going Gordon Davidson's
The other
mother's
side.
house.
I'm talking
You get into
about
circles
the,
of
the
conversation.
little house to the right of the post office.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, there's a couple acres there that it would.
Brain racing.
Because we're out of B1, zone property.
Yeah, so that would have to be rezoned, because that's
We
residential.
have to rezone it, but B1, you know, the mud is B1.
Yes.
And we have to rezone that as a B1 area.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, there's the Snell property, but right now that the builder, the guy that's doing the affordable housing, he has
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
On that pad site.
Right, so that property's
But
spoken.
anyway, I mean,
You got a lot of information.
Right, there's a lot of different ways to go here, and, yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about the retail store either, and have no idea what kind of revenue that would generate for a town.
The retail store?
They-
Depends on their volume.
And location.
Well, how would we get anything out of it?
Because
We get
We-
tax
Well, we
revenue
would,
out of
yeah,
it.
but we would,
Cannabis.
in order to make it beneficial, we would have to change their tax rate out.
for retail, there's only a few, like for meals and hotels, you have a local option to tax more.
Yeah.
Marijuana is the same, retail marijuana is the same, you can tax up to 3%,
For like 3
More.
years or 5 years.
and that money goes to the
Yeah.
municipality. You can opt to do that. I don't know if Dunnsville's already done that or not, but you can accept that statute and
I think we had
Tax
that in
more.
place. That was part of the negotiation with Wellman. Remember them, those guys? Was it Wellman?
For-
We were doing it on Zoom. It was all during COVID. They were one of the proposals. They were talking about buying the Goss farm.
He
Oh,
got
oh,
shut
yeah,
down.
yeah.
He was the one that we
Well, they
turned
wanted
down.
us to
He was
change
trying
the
to scale
bylaw
it all
to-
up. And he's like, well, I'm going to kick you guys back, 3% for the next 3 years each on everything I wholesale out. And we're like, well, buddy, you can't do in-town deliveries. That was another, it was also just.
He also wanted to do open air. He wasn't looking to
Yeah.
do
Oh, yeah.
greenhouses. They wanted to grow 5 acres of,
and that's another spot.
So they had checked it all out and they found a way to make it work. To do like like growing corn, they
but our
found a way.
bylaw wouldn't allow.
He wanted to do other stuff too. He wanted to.
Yeah,
He wanted to have home delivery.
yeah,
He wanted to,
He was actually progressive. If you think about it, 'cause it's all happening now.
yeah.
So Joan,
yeah.
this is worth talking about.
What's that? Well, I think,
This is worth talking about.
I personally, I voted against, recreational marijuana, personally. But I think with, the way people feel today, I think you've got as good a chance as any of coming up with something that you might approve. So, I think it's worth pursuing. I think it's the opiate of the masses, and I just, I have a problem with it in general, but, okay, yeah, you're right, don't you between that and alcohol and, and any other stuff. I just,
Right, again, due to my age, I was against online banking and Zelle and GPS and cell phones. It's just- That's the way the world's going. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
thank you.
listening.
I like ideas.
Well, I wish there were more.
We like ideas, and if your interest is that you want to continue to pursue this, sure, you've got a number of issues that need to be identified
Yeah.
and resolved, and that's not going to be something that the select board is going to do. There's going to have to be a grower that's going to come into town, that's going to put the time, money, and effort into saying, I want to grow here, and I need this support. And that was how, it's like the lettuce company. He had complete support from this board. We embraced the idea, but it was his concept, right? We had a couple of minor issues with truck traffic and stuff like that, because I think they push out like 100,000 head of lettuce a month or something like that. And it went away. But my point with that is that if you're here tonight asking to revisit this, it would certainly be a worthy effort, because I think in the time forward, a lot of the fright around this is gone away.
Okay. Got it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, no, you put a lot of time and effort into your presentation and thought, and thank you.
I bet. Thanks.
Okay, all right,
Can I bring something up for new business?
you may.
Um, so, this is very quick. We have a resident in town who, does like a haunted house every year for Halloween. He's a graphic artist, set designer kind of guy. He wanted to know if he could light up town hall for Halloween. So it wouldn't, we're not talking about turning it into like something crazy, but just some accent lighting. to make it
Outside
cool.
accent
Outside,
lighting?
Yeah. So I know we've never done anything like that before, but it could be kind of fun.
Is there a date range, or is it just for Halloween?
We would probably do it after the anniversary thing, which is mid-October. So for a couple weeks at the end of October.
You guys do that?
I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, the fact that we haven't done it before doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, it's a fun holiday for a lot of people, right? It just is,
I mean,
right?
2 weeks may be kind of long, to get going, but
For lighting, you like
Yeah.
what would make you more comfortable?
I don't know.
You're like none.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just thinking of driving by for 2 weeks. I want to be seeing it. But,
No revolving thing with,
Yeah.
It would be like some accent lighting.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
purple, orange.
Classy lights.
Yeah, but I think a couple
I
weeks.
mean, I guess I would get a better
Couple
idea of
weeks
what
is-
you're thinking of doing, but yeah, I mean, I think it would be kind of cool.
right.
Would it impact the neighbors on either side?
No.
Or just simply putting light accents on the
Right.
town?
Yeah, we would make sure it isn't,
Yeah.
and it'll be nice, it'll be done tastefully. It's
Okay.
not, we're not gonna have like stuff hanging from the
No,
trees or anything crazy like that.
Skeletons that jump out at you when you
No.
drive by.
I don't have a problem with it.
We don't have to worry about the monuments, right? It'll be above the monuments.
Correct, but just
Okay,
the building,
just the building.
yeah.
If people complain, we can tell them that they should have come to the meeting and then they would.
Give them like extension.
But they didn't hear or listen to it, so they didn't show up.
Right.
The Hamlet of Dunstable. I'll never forget that one.
Do you need a motion from us?
I don't, I just kind of brought it up as new business, but.
I don't,
just wanna make sure.
I don't, I think it's a kind of a nice idea. The fact that it hasn't been done before, it's cool. I mean, they,
It's not a permanent thing.
it's for a couple of
No.
weeks, so, the only thing I would offer is that if they choose to do it, that they please take sufficient care with whatever extension cords are being used to light, that's all. So there's no trip hazards or vehicles driving over the thing and we end up having some kind of a fiasco with that. And you can manage that. There's all kinds of ways to make that work, that's all. But personally, if you need a vote from the board, I could ask for a motion, but I'm telling you, it sounds like a nice idea, but I like Halloween anyway, so it's just.
I think a motion's probably a good idea because we made a motion for the Christmas festival for them to do stuff out here.
Mm.
Or a
Oh,
holiday
on the
festival.
Oh, yeah, what's the
Yeah.
name of that? Yeah, you're right.
Jingle Fest, sorry, yeah,
Jingle
so. And they had applied to use it. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I just want to make sure we put John Hughes through the same steps. Like, I wonder if we should have the same steps happen here.
No harm.
No,
I don't know. Right? Or like,
I would just suggest if there's gonna be a vote on it, that we just wait till next meeting and put it
So
on
we
the
can
agenda
actually-
for a vote.
Yeah, that's.
Which, that's. I
yeah,
mean,
because I can't remember what we did for Jingle Fest. I think we just made a motion to accept.
No,
the
there was a
request.
request.
There was a-
Facility
yeah.
use
Was it
request.
Yeah, there
facility
was.
use
And
request?
then there
Just-
was a request for additional decorations, and we asked for more info. I don't think
Yeah.
we've gotten the info yet.
Okay,
Just do the same thing, fill out the paperwork and
do it next
and
week.
just follow the process. But I don't think there's any objection to it, at least from
No,
my
right.
perspective.
I like the
It'd be
idea.
kind of a nice little idea, yeah.
I'll throw it on the next meeting and I'll try to have more info for you on specifically what
Okay,
will be done so that you're comfortable with that.
Cool.
Thanks.
all right.
Any other new business or old business? Mr. Jason?
Nope.
Jason didn't know I was bringing that up.
I like it.
He's ready to hit the road.
Town administrators report?
Okay, I'll run through this quick.
Great.
Budget worksheets were distributed to departments.
Yep.
Sue and I are scheduling right now MCPPO training. That's the purchasing training, public purchasing training
Yeah.
for both of us. So they just, the Inspector General just announced that they're giving all rural communities one person for free. So we'll only have to pay for one person to go through it, which is nice. We already talked about the updated forecast. That needs to be further updated. I sent you a draft capital improvement plan, which is posted on the website now, which is developed over the course of the last couple of months with everybody. If you have any comments or feedback on that, let me know. The IFB for the bandstand renovations is out. It's been posted, advertised everywhere, so bids are due on the 2nd of October. I copied you all on an email for some planned updates to our IT, just essentially transferring folks to Microsoft 365 is like a first step. We have other things planned, but that's the first thing, and that's being paid for through ARPA funds. One of the things we are working on to continually improve kind of outreach communication efforts is Sue and I have been talking about scheduling office hours for me, possibly at the cafe, coffee on me. People want to come and talk about anything. So that's going to be hopefully scheduled. That was part of the goals, goals, objective, outreach stuff. So anyone wants a free coffee and want to give me an earful, you're more than welcome to.
Are we
Come
allowed
on
to
down.
do it too? Are we invited?
Absolutely. Please. Just shout out to the first responders who helped with the storm impacts. It was quite the night and day today. So everyone was on full alert and did a great job, in particular the highway folks. Fire and police too. We did experience some impacts here at Town Hall, which we're still kind of sorting through, mostly with telephones and computer network issues, but hopefully rectified soon. In some water leaks with the roof, which we need to figure out. Special town meeting in November. I distributed kind of a outline that the clerk put together related to deadlines that we have. I set kind of a theoretical date of the 13th of November. So if that is a date that works for folks, the 28th is when the board needs to call the special town meeting. So the 28th of September, sorry. So just FYI. The only real things on the warrant, as far as I know right now, is the Town Center District bylaw amendment and payment of prior year bills we can do. The other question is the people, as we talked about earlier, PFAS project. Do we want to include that on the special town meeting warrant? So other than that, those are the kind of the three issues that I'm aware of that we may need to address. Lastly, community compact grant is open. We're eligible to apply. So there are a wide variety of categories that we can apply for. We can apply for 2 best practices if we're interested. I sent the email out just about an hour ago. Well, no, not an hour ago, but 3 hours ago, an hour before the meeting. So if you have a chance to take a look at that, and if you like any options that are available, let me know. It's a great program. I think the town has participated before. I've used it in other communities. It's a great way to get outside expertise into developing a whole host of things. So take a look at it. In addition to that, the Community Compact Program also has an IT grant program, which is under the umbrella of the Community Compact Program, but separate from the Best Practices Program. And it actually gives dollars to support technology investments in municipalities. So if we have any idea, I know I have a couple ideas in terms of like budget software that we could apply for. But if there are other ideas that people have, I'm going to run this up the flagpole with our vendor too, to see if they have any known needs that could be covered under this program. But if anyone has any other ideas, let me know. And that's all.
I just got one quick question.
Yeah.
Just because it's a carryover from the, are the laptops leased or do we own them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.